Podcast.
We are just a little bit up against it here. As I speak to you, it is 8:34 on Tuesday evening. Now, my traditional publishing time is 12:02 a.m. on Wednesday, which means, if you're keeping track at home, I got about 3.5 hours to record, edit, and upload this episode. And that seems daunting, but it occurs to me in this moment that if Senator Cory Booker can filibuster the United States Senate by speaking quite literally for 24 hours straight, he may still be speaking as I speak to you now. If he can do that, if he can do his bit, maybe, just maybe, I can pull this off in 3.5 hours. And we're doing a Q&A, kids. We're doing a Q&A because I recognize that since my return, I had a little hiatus in the summer. Since my return, I've been talking about some heavy stuff. I've been talking about some personal stuff. I've been talking about some esoteric stuff. I recognize that the tone of the program has shifted slightly over the past 4 or 5 months, and I don't know if that's cool with everyone. I'm not sure how much you want to hear about some of the weird stuff I've been talking about. You keep tuning in, though. God love you. God bless your cotton socks. You keep tuning in, so maybe it's okay. But just in case, in the spirit of equilibrium, I wanted to give you a chance to change the narrative, change the discourse if you so desired. And it turns out some of you do, because I put out the call for questions, and I got some good ones back, as I generally do, and thank you so much for that. And we're going to tackle them on this episode, some of them. I don't have time to do all of them. Some of them we'll have a little fun. I can't promise we'll lighten the mood. Some of the questions are esoteric, which tells me, hey, maybe you enjoy the esoteric conversations. In any case, irregardless, as they say. Let's get into some of it. The first question that I'm going to answer actually comes from me. I have privilege here. I am taking the first question. And the first question is, who are you most proud of this week? And I feel as though that should become a regular segment. Who are you most proud of this week? Just a wonderful way to celebrate people, to microdose a little bit of hope in these troubled times, to look to examples, to look to people who are inspiring, to look to stories you can latch on to that give you just a little bit of boost, man. Who are you most proud of this week? And I got 2 answers to that question, okay? And the first answer is a very dear friend of mine, a past guest on this program, who brings to 3 the number of Juno winners we have had on the John Huff podcast. She joins Dave Benedict of Default. She joins Danny Miles of July Talk. She is no less than our old friend Sarah McDougal herself, who has collected, or at least is peripheral to, a Juno win for the Maya Davies record, Lovers Gothic. Sarah has a production credit and a songwriting credit on that record, which won at the Junos the Adult Contemporary Album of the Year. And so our undying praise goes to Sarah McDougal, and what a story she is. Now, we know her as just a terrific artist, right? We know her as a terrific songwriter. She's released several really great records. She has this wonderful reputation. She's in Europe at this moment. I think she just wrapped her latest tour in Europe and she's returning home. And she's a great story, man, because A, she's just a wonderful songwriter, wonderful singer, and she has that artist thing dialed in. But during the pandemic, when all of that went away, the live performance and all of that stuff, a lot of us who are in the music scene, you reacted in one of a couple of ways. In my case and in many others, you sat down and you seriously wondered, Especially as the lockdowns continued, you wondered, do I want to do this anymore? Because venues were closing, opportunities were drying up, people were walking away, and it felt as though the whole musical world was dying. And then you found yourself at home on Friday night and Saturday night at midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 in the morning, and you got to thinking, I kind of like this. I can get used to this not being in some really awful dive bar at 2 in the morning with drunks staggering around. I could get used to not having to get home at 4 in the morning and not have any sleep. I can get used to not having to deal with the hassles of playing music anymore. And a lot of people, out of necessity, found themselves focusing elsewhere on regular jobs or whatever and walking away from the music scene. And I had that temptation myself. There was a moment during the pandemic where I thought I might be done. I had done some touring, I had done the thing and loved it. And then it was going away. And then I was, of course, plagued by anxiety that went with all of that. And the thought of kind of being back out there in the world again was really frightening to me. And it became very comfortable to not be doing that. And I had a serious question. Am I going to come back or not? A lot of us had that question, and a lot of us have not returned. Simple as that. Then the other response to that was to simply pivot. And Sarah is a person who pivoted, all right? She has always been interested in production. She's always been involved in production. But when the lockdowns happened and the music scene dried up and disappeared, instead of sitting back lamenting, instead of questioning, do I do this anymore? She just pivoted, all right? Music recording continued. And so she poured her effort into production, right? So she started doing workshops. She started working on her skills. She started brushing up. She built a studio in her home, and she started working with some artists, and she began focusing her energy away from live performance and into recording and into production. And she began to work with some pretty high level people. She got good at it, and she kept working at it because she has a natural inclination and a natural interest, a natural ability, and a natural passion for the recording end of the business. I don't. I like recording. I like playing the drums in studios. I don't like the engineering. I don't like all of the software. I don't like all that stuff. The tech stuff doesn't do anything for me. I don't get it. I can just barely make this podcast one voice. Just barely make that heard at a relatively acceptable level. Music production, 9. Not my thing. Her thing. Sarah's thing. And so she dedicated herself to learning to be a better producer and developing her own particular style, her own particular sound. She worked with a lot of artists. And here she is with Maya Davies. And she has writing and production credits on a Juno-winning record. And good for her. No one is more deserving. And what an inspiration that is. And I don't even know if Sarah listens. But I'll see her at pickleball, or I'll have a drink with her, and I'll just express my extreme admiration and congratulations. And what an inspiration that is, man. She pivoted. When one door seemed closed, she pivoted. And she poured herself into that, and she made it happen. And here she is beginning to reap the rewards, the recognition. It only goes up from here. She's already developing quite a reputation in the music scene in Canada. And it's onward and upward. The best is yet to come for Sarah, and good for her. It's really exciting, and I'm really proud of her. And so there you go. I am most proud, A, of Sarah McDougall this week, and option B, number 2, I'm just really proud of our old pal, Ken the Zen. Good old Ken the Zen. Now, he was one of those musicians, too. When the lockdowns happened, he was a full-timer. I was trying real hard to be a full-timer. He was actually a full-timer, all right? Touring, he'd been on the road forever. Touring, performing, playing gigs. He was a full-time musician. And then the lockdowns came. All of that dried up and went away. And what are you going to do? Man's got to eat. Ken the Zen pivoted away from performing live because he couldn't. and into a different sort of job. Had to make the bills and did that and has done really well at it. And I commend him for that alone. It is difficult to walk away from a life. It is difficult to walk away from a passion, and Ken the Zen will tell you what he is a musician. And to see that dry up and to face this potential of that being over, very, very difficult. But he did what he had to do. Took a job, started doing his thing. And for several years did that. And he was in the same boat as me. Right? A lot of the gigs he was playing did not come back. Right? A lot of the opportunity that was there before is now gone. And how do you deal with that? You still deal with the struggle of trying to get things to where they were and beyond. But he kept a good attitude about it, kept himself sharp, applied himself to other things. And then, kids, opportunity knocked in the most exciting way. When somebody called him up randomly, unexpectedly, and said, "Hey, Ken the Zen, we're starting an Alice Cooper tribute, and do you want to be a part of it?" Now, you got to know this about Ken the Zen, okay? This is, apart from being offered the position of bass player in Alice Cooper's actual band, this is the dream gig. Ken the Zen's favorite artist of all time is Alice Cooper, and it has been forever. And all of a sudden, they pop up and say, let's put an Alice tribute together. And that's a pivot for Ken, too. All right? That's a pivot away from focusing on original music and touring with original artists into a different thing. But you know as well as I do, kids, if you're paying attention, if you got your ear to the ground, man, if you got your finger on the pulse, the whole tribute act thing is really happening these days. There's a whole scene for tribute acts, and the good ones do really, really well. Like play arenas, for crying out loud. And so they came along and said, "Hey, Ken the Zen, we're doing Alice Cooper. Do you want to join?" Yes, he does. And all of a sudden, this thing that seemed dead, this music career that seemed like it's just lost all of its momentum and all of its trajectory, all of a sudden it has blossoms in the most exciting possible way. Dude, these are the lines you were born to play. This is the band you were born to be a part of. And so he joins, and they set about doing the work. It's like, if we're going to do this, let's do this. Ken the Zen and I have a very similar approach to music, which is we want to be good. We want to be damn good. We are not into half-assing what we're doing. We want to really kick ass, especially in his case with this Alice Cooper thing, Coop's Troops, which is a passion project with enormous potential, right? And so right off the bat, we're like, if we're doing this, we're going to do this. Right? We're going to do this right. And that begins with learning these songs note for note, front to back. Okay. And so they brought in some killer players to do this. An amazing Alice. I mean, the Alice he sounds like Alice. It's pretty cool. And then they just set about doing the work. Okay. They gathered in the rehearsal space, and they began doing the work of learning those songs note for note, man. No half-assing this. And they poured in the time and the effort, and they rehearsed and they rehearsed and they rehearsed. And when they're getting a handle on the songs, they're beginning to think about the show, because we know Alice Cooper is the king of shock rock. You cannot do an Alice Cooper tribute properly just by putting a little bit of makeup on the singer's face. All right. You need a stage show. And so they started talking about how we're going to look, what the stage is going to look like. And they got the props. They built an electric chair that functions. Doesn't kill people, but it functions. All right. It's wired. They began putting a show together as they were learning the songs. And they were like, we're going to do this properly. Different costumes, different moments that happened in the show. And they built this thing. Okay. And then last summer, they made their debut at a private party. I was there. They were great. They did not have a proper stage. They couldn't do the show as they wanted to, but they came out and just crushed musically. And they kept working. You kids out there, you young kids out there who are starting bands, want to get somewhere, want to go someplace with it, are serious about it, you've got to do the work. You have got to rehearse. If you half-ass your preparation, you will get half-assed results. And so Ken walked into this situation as I want to walk into situations, as we walk into them together, and said, are we doing this or are we not doing this? Because if we're doing this and we're serious about it and we want to go somewhere with it, we're going to do it right. And they did. And so now, since that show last summer, they've added a whole bunch of different era Alice to the set. They got 2 full sets going now. And they've done a couple of shows. And last weekend, they did a hometown gig. It was packed out, big club. And they just came out and destroyed. They just came out and destroyed, man. The way they sounded, the way they performed, the songs were note perfect, all right? No half-assing it. No mistakes. No flubs on arrangements. No bad notes. They were dialed in and they crushed the performance. Why? Because they're geniuses? No. Talented? Yes. Geniuses? No. You don't just walk up and crush like that without preparing, without rehearsing. The reason they came up and crushed is because they've done the work. You cannot do that without doing the work. And so you ask yourself, are you in fact doing the work? Especially the things that you are passionate about. If you've got this dream in your mind that you're going to make it as a musician, let's say, or an artist or anything else, are you actually doing the commensurate work? Are you doing the work to be great? Anybody can half-ass it, man. Anybody can half-ass it. What separates you, me, everybody from those people who half-ass it, what makes you better than them is not talent. It is work. It is doing the work. It is rehearsing. It takes me back to when I was in Hearts. And we were at our peak at a certain point, just a machine. Just a machine. And we could go out and we could open for Nazareth. And we could open for Headstones. And we could hold our own on those stages, okay? Because we had put the time into learning the music, into building a set, into working on our transitions, into having moments. A friggin' machine. And I miss it. I miss it. We used to rehearse whether there was a gig or not. As a matter of course. We rehearsed every week, and if we had a big gig coming, we rehearsed more than once a week because we wanted to be great. And you cannot be great without the damn preparation. You cannot, and you should not. You should have too much integrity to half-ass a gig. I get pulled into half-ass gigs sometimes, and I feel bad about it every time because I want to be great. All right? No matter who I'm performing with or what the gig is, I want that band to go out and just destroy. I want that band to go out and be tight AF. I want that band to go out and leave Jaws on the friggin' floor. And when you're getting around to opening for bands like Nazareth and Headstones, you better have your crap together, man, because you will be embarrassed otherwise. It's a professional thing. It's a personal integrity thing. I want to crush, and watching Coops Troops play on the weekend, note for note, note perfect, tight, everything was bang on, and recognizing and offering the respect to those cats for doing the work. And so are you doing the work, kids? Those of you who wish to be great, are you doing the work that makes you great? Are you rehearsing your shows? Are you working on your stage production? You know, am I doing what it takes to be great as a drummer, as a podcaster? Are any of us doing what it really takes to be great? And the question is, if we're not, why are we not? And we may get into that a little bit as I answer some of the questions that are forthcoming, but I'm offering my salute, the John Huff Podcast salute, to Ken the Zen and Coops Troops for doing the work. And it is evident in the performance, man. There is nothing half-assed about that show. It is tight, it is professional, and my hat is off to them. My top hat is off to them. And kudos to Ken. And it's a reminder that opportunity can still knock, man. You can be going along and feeling like maybe it's all over, and then all of a sudden, what lands in your lap is the most golden of opportunities, and it's the right time because you're available and you're ready for it. And bam, off you go. And I hold on to that. I hold on to that now as I contemplate my own future and what I want it to look like. And one of the things I want to be in that future is kicking ass. With whoever it is on stage, I want to be tight AF again. I want people to exit the show saying, wow, that band was friggin' hot. And that only happens from doing the work. It only happens from prep and practice. And if you half-ass it, you get half-assed results. And half-assed results are not great. Okay? Ken the Zen, kudos to you. Let's get to some questions. I've already run 20 minutes here. Ken the Zen offered me the greatest compliment I think I've ever received, certainly one of them. When I put out the call, and I don't even know how to answer this, but he said, what in the world did you do, you meaning me, what in the world did you do to end up being the most inspiring and respectable person I have ever met? You got to meet more people, man. Have you met Sarah McDougal? What did I do to become the most inspiring and respectable person that Ken the Zen has met? Well, that is the most overwhelming flattery, and thank you so much. And the honest answer is, I don't know. I don't know what inspires you about me. I don't know what it is in me that you find respectable. What I'm going to say, though, is that a lot of what you might find respectable about me is stuff that I've taken from you. This is a bit of a bromance here. Bit of a bro-in happening. But the truth is, as they say, game recognize game, man. I try real hard to inspire people, not to be inspiring myself, if that makes any sense. I mean, I want my story to be inspirational. What is my story? It's a person coming from a position of weakness into a position of strength. Somebody coming at the world with all sorts of insecurity and self-doubt and fear and overcoming all of that to become somebody who does stuff and who pursues dreams like music. I'm not the greatest drummer in the world. I'm not even the greatest drummer probably on my block. But I've managed to accomplish some stuff because I've overcome the fear and the self-doubt that would hold me back from trying. And what I've found, as I've said before, is your greatness is just waiting for you on the other side of fear, and fear is a veil. I've seen a couple of posts recently online, people asking, how do you get past stage fright? I have all this anxiety about performing. And you need to look at what the fear is. I mean, what is causing the fright? What are you frightened of? What are you afraid will happen? And it's different for everybody. In my case, it was a fear of being found out to be inadequate, found out to be an imposter. And it's that way for a lot of people. And the only way past that is to test yourself. The only way past that is to put yourself in the arena. And then you realize you can hang. You realize you can hold your own. You realize you have more ability and more value than you thought you did. Last weekend, for the first time, I dropped in to the 3.5 plus rating drop in at the pickleball court. Tested myself against better players and held my own. And the only way to develop confidence is to put yourself in these positions of requiring confidence to get through. I've done that as a musician. It's been a nightmare at times, but I have overcome so much self-doubt and begun to learn what's valuable about what I do, and then begin to have quite a lot of confidence in what I do. What I do is not what everybody does. I was just having a little workout. I was watching a live performance by the band Believer from 1991. Believer is one of my favorite bands of all time. One of the great old school thrash bands that you have not heard of. Thrash metal, speed metal. And when they play live, they did the work, kids. They did not half-ass anything. They are jaw-dropping. How fast they play, how technically they play, how tight they are. It's absolutely mind-blowing, the level of technical execution on those songs. The drummer is Joey Dobb. He's one of the greatest drummers you've never heard of. I can't do what Joey Dobb does. I've begun to understand what it is that I do. And the only reason I've come to understand that is because I've put myself in the fire. I've put myself in the crucible, gone out and played with people who I was worried would reject me for not being good enough. I've gone out and I've grown as a player, and I've grown as somebody in the music business. I've learned how to be a professional in the music business. I don't mean that I am a professional. I mean, I've learned how to act professionally, conduct myself professionally. And most of that comes from Ken. All right. Ken has been the mentor, direct and indirect, for how I conduct myself in the music business, because he is a consummate professional. And so if there's something respectable about me as a musician, a lot of that was learned from you, man. So really, you're just looking in a mirror. I try to inspire people with my story, simply to say, I'm not that great, but I've overcome a lot in order to learn about myself and become a little bit more confident in myself, understand myself a little bit. And that is the inspiration. Simply that you can do the things you want to do. All right. Whatever this fear it is that holds you back from whatever it is, it's an illusion. It doesn't matter. It's a paper tiger. You push through that veil and then all of a sudden you're on the other side. The first time I stepped up on the stage with Hearts, my own heart was banging in my chest like the kick drum I was about to play. All right. But I did that show and had a great time. And then you flash forward and we're playing in front of thousands of people on New Year's Eve. And I'm on tour with Sarah, and I'm all of a sudden doing all of these things that seemed light years beyond what I was capable of doing when I was working from this place of uncertainty and self-doubt and fear. And so if there's an inspiration about me, it's not me. It's the story. And it's the evidence that I try to present that you can do stuff, that you've got way more in you than you realize, and that this fear needs to be reckoned with. But once you push past it, you begin to realize it's an illusion. And so I want my story to be inspiring. And so I go around saying to people, by the way, you can do that thing. That thing that you're afraid to do, you can do that. You really can. You just have to apply yourself a little bit. You got to do the work. Sometimes you got to take the knocks, and I've taken them in this game. But you can do it. I'm the proof that you can do it. And so if I did something to be the most inspiring person to Ken, that's all I did. I pushed through a little bit of fear. And then over the past 10, 12, 15 years, I've reckoned with myself. I've reckoned with my self-doubt. I've reckoned with anxiety. I've reckoned with all of the ways in which my own ego dominance, not arrogance, but ego dominance, has caused me pain. And a lot of what I've learned about that, the spiritual side of things, has also come from Ken. I mean, he and I have had many a long drive together to different gigs all around the world, talking about this stuff. A lot of what I know about Buddhism comes from Ken. A lot of what I know about spirituality, meditation, a lot of that comes from Ken. So really, Ken Zen, you're looking in a mirror, man. The second part of the question was, how can I achieve such notoriety? I don't think you want to achieve notoriety. I don't think you want to achieve any sort of reputation at all, really. But you've already done it. All right. You are doing it now. I mean, your influence on me is irrefutable. And so what you see in me is a reflection of you. A respectable person, that's in the eye of the beholder. I'm pleased that your eye beholds me as such. And I try really hard to be. All right. I've been a selfish person in the past. I've been an egoic person in the past. And as you dig into spirituality and as you reckon with your own weaknesses, you begin to understand how much those weaknesses drive your behavior, how much ego drives your behavior. And I was just lucky enough to encounter some wise people who got it through my thick skull to release the ego attachments and thus release a lot of the suffering that I caused myself by being insecure, by needing approval from people, by needing attention from people. So much of that has driven my behavior. That is not respectable. It's human, but it's not respectable. And it's only in confronting that I've become just a little bit better as a person that maybe I was before. But I still struggle mightily with ego stuff. I still struggle with self-doubt regularly. I'm just better at handling it now because I've been in the arena, right? There's a reason why I can play a gig better now than I could 15 years ago because I've played hundreds of them. And I can now wrestle with my own ego, my own insecurity, my own self-doubt much better now than I could 15 years ago because I've had a zillion wrestling matches with my own ego. It's one of the reasons I can conduct, hopefully with a little bit of grace, this process of separating from my spouse because it's an ego killer. And it's friggin' painful and it's difficult. But the reason I've been able to keep it together is because I've wrestled so hard with my own character, with my own weaknesses, and there are many and they persist. But I'm getting better at handling them, you know? And so I appreciate immensely, Ken the Zen, you saying those nice things about me, but the truth is you're looking in a mirror, man. So much of what you may find inspiring or respectable about me is learned from you and reflected to you. So I don't know if that's a good answer or not, but I really have learned a ton from you about being a generous person. I mean, generous as an attitude, not necessarily generous materially, although that too, but generous about people. I was a very judgmental person. I was taught as a Christian kid to be that. And then insecurity reveals itself or presents itself a lot in judgment. And as a younger person, my own inferiority made me judgmental of other people. And a lot of that was just jealousy. Straight up jealousy. But you have a much more pure spirit than I do. You have a much more generous spirit than I do about people because I think you're more secure than I am. But I'm getting there. I'm learning. And so you don't need to achieve such notoriety. You've already got it because I could have asked you the same question. And so if you find something inspirational or respectable in me, know that I find it in you as well. And thank you ever so much for supporting this program and for those questions. See, I told you I wasn't going to get heavy. Had some other fun ones. More fun. But it's all related. It's weird how when I put out the call for questions, they tend to intertwine just a little bit. Our old friend Jay says, hey, you keep talking about moving to Europe. Where and why? And I don't have a good answer to that question either. I don't have a good answer to that question either. I am actually going to hold that question because we got one from Carly, actually, our old friend Carly Thomas, which I think provides a nice kind of preamble to it. She said, what kinds of things are you manifesting right now? And this potential move to anywhere fits into that. Now, I had to think a little bit about the Carly one. What are you manifesting right now? And some of you who have been annoyed by my esoteric episodes lately will be annoyed by this question because it plays into that spirituality. It plays into this sort of new age stuff that a lot of people roll their eyes at. But if you've hung around this far in the past few months, maybe you're into it too, or at least open. What am I manifesting? I'm not really actively manifesting anything. For the uninitiated, this is this idea that you can emotively kind of think and will your world into existence. You know, manifestation is about, in the parlance, everything is energy. Everything has a vibration. And manifesting something in your life is about matching the vibration of that thing, whether it's a new job or a partner or a car or an apartment or a musical opportunity or whatever. It's like you can vibrate your world into existence energetically by getting onto the same vibrational plane as whatever it is you're looking for. Esoteric concept. They talk about the law of attraction, and that's what it's about. And I'm not really manifesting anything at this moment. I feel like there are probably seasons for that. And my game over the past, it's getting to be like 7 or 8 months now since my marriage was unofficially ended. At least between the two of us, we didn't tell people for quite a while after that, but it's been almost that long. And this period of time, I feel as though life has been asking me to let go, right? Manifesting stuff is about having sort of a direction in mind and having things you want and being very emotive about that, feeling the emotion of having those things, experiencing those things. And that's an active thing. In my case, I feel like life doesn't want me to do that right now. I released an episode some time ago that says, what is life asking of you? If you could take a look at your circumstances, take a look at what's going on with you right now. And if you enter into that inquiry, holding on to the idea that you are, as they say, I know this language is woo-woo, co-creating with the universe. But if you imagine that there is actually an energy, at least, an energy field in the universe with which you can interact and create, and it gives you guidance and it gives you direction. You take a look at the circumstances of your life and it's like, what is life asking of me right now? Maybe you've lost your job and you say, life is asking me to what? Pivot into a different career? Trust it? Maybe you've had a relationship breakup, or maybe you've done something really, really dumb. Maybe you've created some bad circumstances, whatever. You know, COVID happens and your musical career falls apart and you say, well, what is life asking of me right now? And there's a different answer for everybody. So there are periods of time when I suspect life is asking you to manifest. Life is asking you to take the energy you've got and pour it into something and try to make something happen or try to bring something to life, bring something to fruition. I don't feel that necessarily myself right now. I feel like over the past 7 or 8 months, life has asked me to surrender. We come back to this. I know that this episode was supposed to be getting away from all of this talk, but people want to know about it. So here we are. I think life is asking me to let go of direction, to let go of how things, of having things the way I think they ought to be. I mean, my world has fallen apart. In the past 8 months, life as I knew it has been obliterated. It's gone. Okay. Life is asking me to just sit with that, to feel that, and to let things unfold. I've spent so much of my life trying to direct the way in which things go. That is anxiety. That is trying to control the uncontrollable. Hasn't worked for me, right? It's created breakdowns and it's caused gallbladder attacks and made a misery at times of my life. My thing has been being unable to surrender control because anxiety is about trying to control things for fear of things being out of control. And so life right now is saying to me, trust. Have faith, let go, surrender. And that is an attitude that comes with manifesting too. All right. Because the idea is, I want this thing in my life. Then you have to surrender the way in which that happens, right? Say, well, I want a really great musical opportunity. And then you've got to let go of A, that need, and B, how it happens. And then one day you're at a jam and somebody calls you up and says, hey, you want to do an Alice Cooper tribute? Ken the Zen's not looking for that. He's not out there soliciting for that. He doesn't even know he wants that. And then all of a sudden, bang, there it is, right? So there is an element of surrender to manifesting, right? At this moment, life has not been asking me to guide that. It's been asking me to let go and let it take over. And so when I really needed it, along came a job. And you could say I manifested that by applying to things and by being sort of conscious of that. And to a certain extent, that's true. It's co-creation. It's not the job that I thought I was going to get. It's not the circumstance that I thought I was going to be in. But life is again asking me to trust the direction of these things. And so I'm not really manifesting anything deliberately right now, but just in the past week or so, I have begun to focus just a little bit more intensely on a couple of things, one of which is moving someplace. Which brings us to Jay's question, because I do keep talking about moving to Europe. I've been feeling, just in the past week in particular, that maybe it's time to go somewhere. I'm not exactly sure where, all right? So if we're beginning to manifest a move, I can't really do that until I kind of manifest a direction. And so I'm sort of sitting around just now beginning to think seriously about, I've done a lot of wishful thinking, but now all of a sudden I'm beginning to think more seriously about going someplace. And I need some help with that. All right. I need some direction from life, from the universe, in terms of where I'm going to go, where I'm supposed to go, where it's right for me to go. And I don't have an answer to that yet. I look towards Europe. And if we're talking about Europe, the most obvious place is Vienna, Austria, which, as I've said umpteen times, is the most beautiful city I've ever seen. And stuff going on off air, there's maybe some potential there. There's maybe a landing place in Vienna. There's some stuff happening behind the scenes, not to do with me, but potentially might have something to do with me later. I'm being vague because it's not my story to tell. But there seems to be maybe some winds, some currents flowing in the direction of Vienna, and I love Vienna. It's such a stunning city. And I've been working very diligently at my Deutsch, well, semi-diligently. I have, I think, a 698-day streak on Duolingo, and I still can't carry a conversation, but I'm learning a little bit. And so it's like I've been pouring myself into German, and they speak German-ish in Austria. And so Vienna seems the obvious place, but I'm open to suggestion. I found out I have a Dutch heritage. I love the Netherlands too, and I have friends in the Netherlands. I do have connections there. Germany, obviously, and since I'm learning so much German, fewer connections there. I do know people in Germany, but it feels somewhat different, and I don't know. And maybe life doesn't want me there at all, but back to Carly's thing, I'm beginning to think about manifesting a career, and I'm not quite sure what career, but I'm beginning to get a glimmer of the sort of parameters I would like around that career. I tried real hard to be a full-time musician, and I would like music to be a bigger part of my life again. There was a period of time where I was playing 100 gigs a year, and I was touring. Wasn't making a living, but I was doing those things. And then last year I played like 25 gigs, and that's not enough. I got to play more, and I want to play better. And so it's like I'm becoming aware that I do want music in my life in a bigger way than it has been. So that's on the radar. I still have high hopes for this podcast, even though it's like we're 218 episodes in. This is maybe it. Like, this is maybe as good as it gets, but maybe there's still some hope that podcasting turns into something. I'm thinking about speaking maybe in some way. I'm thinking about acting maybe in some way. I'm thinking about coaching maybe in some way, or getting involved in some sort of therapy. I'm already in therapy myself, but I mean offering that as a type of therapist, maybe. I don't know. I got stuff beginning to roll around in my head now. And I don't know where I'd go in Europe, but those are the places that spring most readily to mind. Vienna, the Netherlands, Germany. And it's like, okay, all I do with that as a person who manifests is say, I feel as though I want to move to Europe and I don't know where. And I just release that. And I try to match this energy of curiosity, this vibration of optimism and hope, and not trepidation. I have a lot of trepidation about it. It's very intimidating. It's frightening to move to another continent. And I've spent some time in these places, but I don't really know my way around. It's intimidating to think about driving. It's like getting a place to live, making it, like, all of that is very bloody intimidating. We're very good at comfort, human beings. And so the thought of moving over there and trying to establish a new life is very bloody intimidating. But I'm trying not to approach it from the level of fear. I'm trying to approach it from the level of curiosity and openness. And then that is the vibration. And then if you are into manifestation, you say, okay, if I match this energy of optimism and hope and curiosity and positivity, then it will be mirrored back to me. The universe is just a big mirror. And so that energy comes back to me. And then if you trust this field, this quantum stuff, this co-creation, you say, well, I feel like I would like to move there, and I want you to show me where. All right, I want you, universe, cosmic intelligence, the field, God, if you prefer, show me, lead me, nudge me, pull me, drag me by the face to where it is that I need to go. And then you step back from that and you just continue working on yourself. You just continue working on your faith, your optimism, your goodness. You just keep working on raising that vibration in yourself. And then when the time is right, it appears. Just like Coop's friggin' troops. You know, when the time is right, if your energy is right, if your vibration is right, then the nudge begins to happen. The door opens, you know, something pulls you there and it's like, okay, well, this is where I need to go now. And you've got to be open to that because it might not in any way be what I thought, right? I knew I needed a job. I thought I knew what job I was going to get, and then I didn't. And then I got a different job, which is great, but turned out to be a contract. It turned out to be a much different situation than I thought I needed at the moment. But you've got to trust that. And so I can say, yeah, I want to manifest a move to Vienna. And that might not be the place I'm supposed to be. Maybe I'm supposed to be in Kutná Hora, Czech Republic, where I've been before. Maybe I'm supposed to be in France. Maybe I'm supposed to be working for Arsenal. Maybe I'm in London, England. All I'm saying is, if I'm leaving here, there's a place for me to go. I don't know where it is. I don't feel the pull just yet, but I'm beginning now to try to vibrate in such a way that, you know, it just falls into place. And so it is with a relationship, not necessarily me, but you out there who are looking for one, or a new apartment or a job or whatever. It's like you begin to set that intention and you begin to be curious about that intention. And then you release, you let go, you surrender the method or the means by which that happens. And you just let it come to you. Now, that is what manifesting is. And so I'm not manifesting anything specific because I feel as though life has been asking me not to do that. Life has been asking me to stand down, to consolidate, to lick my wounds, to reckon with myself and what's gone on and my responsibility for it, and to trust that it's going to eventually lead me to the place where I need to go. But yeah, it's beginning to happen now. It's beginning to turn now. I'm beginning to think more actively about where I would like to be and what I would like to do. And that's bloody exciting. So the short answer is I'm not really manifesting anything right now, but I'm paying a certain amount of attention. And I'm trying to raise my vibration. You know, it's been very difficult with the political news. It's been very difficult at times in my personal life. And then my dad died. And like stuff's gone on, which pulls down the vibe, man. But I'm trying to raise that up again and be open and be curious and be led. I mean, the universe may want me in a place that I hadn't even considered before, you know, and I'm open to that too. And I'm cool with it. And then eventually it may come more into focus. Like, you know, what I actually really want to do with myself is X. And then you focus in. It's like, hey, universe, I really want to do this. Make it so. Make it so, number one. You know, this manifesting thing it's at times active and at times passive. And so I'm, I guess, in a passive state right now. Jay, I like Vienna. I like Germany. I like the Netherlands. And there's no very obvious pull yet. But eventually there will be. And maybe that pull is going to pull me to British Columbia. Right? I don't know. I'm just putting it out there. I like Europe. Maybe that's not where I'm supposed to go. Maybe I'm supposed to go someplace that it never bloody occurred to me, and I'm not controlling that. I'm letting it go. And I think this is the way forward. Carly says, man, this has gone by quickly, and I still have to edit the whole damn thing. Carly, some fun ones. What's your favorite cocktail? On the beach, it is a rum mojito. After dinner, it is an old-fashioned. Easiest question to answer. I love me an old-fashioned. Carly offered another big question. What are your tips for focus and getting things off the ground. I don't have time to tackle that one. That might be a whole episode. That might be a whole bloody episode if I stop for a minute and think about it. So I'm going to have to defer that one because I have to do a ton of editing to get this stuff out. And I like having questions in the hopper. That means I don't have to beg for them the next time. Let me contemplate that one. Let me contemplate a couple of the other ones. And I'm going to go because I got a bunch of work to do in order to get this thing uploaded from my lips to your ears. Congratulations, Sarah McDougall. Congratulations, Ken the Zen. Thank you to everybody who submitted questions. I so appreciate it. It really helps me when you do that. It can be difficult, especially working full time and doing the thing, and trying to come up with content week by week is really, really difficult to do. So I appreciate the people who send in questions or send in comments, people who give me stuff to think about that I can then turn around and present on this program. I appreciate you listening. We'll do some more questions again soon. I'm not sure if it'll be next week, but I got them in the hopper. I will get to them. Thank you ever so much. Good things happen when you put yourself out there, kids. Do not forget it. Do not let the fear stop you. You push through that veil and you realize it's a bloody illusion. Thanks ever so much for listening. I will speak to you next week. Until then, kids, do take care of yourselves. And hey, I'll check you later. Yeah. And start editing.